welcome to Words of Prey, which is a Pipeline Artists original podcast. You can reach us at podcasts, plural, at pipelineartist.com and find us at pipelineartist.com/listen. My amazing guest today is Cheryl A. Originally from Detroit, she now lives on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., where she has navigated a successful career as a writer, television producer, filmmaker, broadcast executive, and media funder. Her debut novel, Long Way Home, a World War II novel, was a 2015 Next Generation Indie Book Award finalist in both the African American literature and historical fiction categories. Her award-winning Charlie Mack Motown Mysteries series is set in Detroit and features a Black lesbian private investigator. When not writing fiction, she consults on a wide range of diversity issues and is a senior associate at Livingston Associates. She's also a member of the Bouchercon Board of Directors and former Director of Inclusion for the Board of the Golden Crown Literary Society. Her next book will be Time's Undoing, which is amazing, from Dutton, coming out in 2023.
So do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think it honestly depends on the situation. I think I'm going to say 85% of the time I'm an introvert.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm much better at like not dealing with people in person. You know, I like my alone time, solitude, reading, quiet activities. But when I do things like, if there's a conference or workshop I have to teach or something like that, I definitely, that's where that extra percentage comes in, where I can really, I don't want to say fake being an extrovert for a period of time, because I do enjoy it to an extent, but it's a very finite window. I only have the bandwidth for like that much of being an extrovert.
What do you think? 15%. Right.
What about yourself?
Yeah, totally the same. I don't know if it's even 15%. It's more like 10 or 12%. It's a little bit, it's changed over the years. So my early Myers-Briggs had me well into the introvert band, and now I'm sort of in the middle.
Oh, do you remember what yours is?
Say again?
Do you remember what your full Myers-Briggs is?
Oh, yes, I certainly do. I am the introvert, NTJ.
Oh, we're so close. I'm INTP.
Are you? You're perceived? Yeah.
But sometimes, because I've taken it a couple of times, and every once in a while I'll get the E. But
that's interesting.
Yeah, like 9 out of 10 times it'll be the I. So I don't know what one question.
I never get the E, but sometimes I'm on the borderline. And like you can turn it on when you have to and need to. And I try to explain to my partner, who's a big time extrovert, it's not that I don't like people. I love people. It's just that the energy I expel when I'm dealing with people is different from yours. So yeah, I have to regroup. I go to a conference. It takes me about 3 days to recover.
Oh, completely. 3 days is light recovery. And I don't know about you, but I lie frequently about meetings, just so that I can like run away. I mean, this is why I travel with my little puppy Tam. Because I can use the excuse, he needs to go to the bathroom. I have to feed him. Something so that I can go run away and take a break from that overwhelming experience and like regroup back, or I've got a meeting for an hour, and go up to the room and rest. I have to do that sort of thing.
Right. I feel a little bad about it sometimes, because especially in the crime fiction community, and so much emphasis on being at the bar and talking, drinking. I don't want to do that.
I know. And it gets so loud and overwhelming. And I don't know about you, but we both say that we fake it rather well, but people don't believe me if I say, like, if I'm finally honest and go like, this is just a little bit overwhelming. I need to go regroup for a while. They're like, you're kidding. You love this sort of thing.
That's funny. Yeah, you don't come across as an introvert, so I could see why people wouldn't believe you.
Well,
Because
that's my
you're
penchant for lying,
there you
apparently.
go. I wouldn't call it lying. Let's not call it lying. That's self-care.
Well,
Yeah.
have you noticed? I mean, this is actually a really interesting topic that I was not planning on discussing, but it's something that I've been thinking about recently because
Yeah.
in the last week, so last Saturday, I taught, I think it was an hour and a half workshop virtually. And
Okay.
then the following Thursday or Wednesday, it ended up being about 2 or 3 hours. Again, it was virtual, but another workshop. And I found that I was as drained after doing those two things as
Yeah.
I normally would be if I did like a day at a conference. And I don't
Right.
know if we're simply like, if the bandwidth level is lower because we haven't seen so many people, because of the
Yeah, that's a
pandemic.
good question. That's a
Um,
good question.
but I don't
Yeah.
know. Have you noticed the same thing? Like a smaller
Yeah.
interaction is a lot more overwhelming.
Or takes as much energy. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have noticed that. And maybe it's because when you're in the little box, you feel compelled sort of to be more bubbly or more, you don't want to just sit here in the box looking, like it's not like you're not moving.
I know.
So, I notice I listen differently. When you're in person, you can listen intently, but you don't have to be on as much, I think.
Right.
You can take visual cues, from the other person. And if they're relaxed, you can slouch in the chair too, but in those little boxes, I think
I think that's a
feel
great
engaged.
point, because the difference also between the one on Saturday, I mean, I enjoyed both of these. For anyone who's listening that, hired me to do these workshops, I enjoyed doing both of them. But the one on Saturday, I got to see they muted everybody, but I got to see all the participants like tiled across the screen.
Oh, that makes
And
a
then
difference.
and then the following one that was longer, it was just me. Like
Ooh,
they did not
those
show
are
me.
hard.
And
Those are hard.
and I felt like I mean, I talk to myself frequently. Again, the reason I have a dog, so that people don't, commit me immediately. I just say, oh, I was talking to the dog. But, with something like that, where I'm, teaching and I want to see if
Yeah,
people, are you with me? Have I lost
that's
you?
right. You don't have any visual cues
And
at
I'm
all.
in a room by myself talking to the
Yeah,
wall, basically. And that was it was a little bit disconcerting, I'll admit.
that part is really hard. I used to work in public television, and I was on air for a while, and at public broadcasting. So I'm doing those pledge breaks that everybody hates, including me now. And so when you're in the studio, you usually don't have an audience. You just have the camera, which is so much easier to me as an introvert to do
Right.
than if they brought an audience in there, if they had the people at the phone bank. So it just depends on the room, and it depends on what you have to do. But, we have, in the work we both do,
Yeah.
we have to be personable. Someone told me about social media. You have to be social, Cheryl, on social media. People are like, oh, okay.
Well, actually, again, a good transition, because, I work with clearly a lot of authors, and
Yeah.
I, write myself. And so I have my own social media, and then I have the parts that are, in promotion of Agora and the other stuff that I work with. And
Right.
what do you actually like social media is going to be my first question.
I find that I like social media so much better because I can be personable and nice, and I really do like people, and I love to hear their stories and say, like to their beautiful pet and children pictures and all that stuff. But if I were in person with them, I'd get worn out so much faster, and it would come off as if I'm not engaged with them. So for me, social media is just a godsend.
That's really great. Now, which social media do you prefer?
Okay, that's a great question, because I'll eventually try each platform, but first I say, oh, I'm effing never going to use that platform. I always say that before I get on. I said that about Twitter, and now I'm on Twitter. And I'm saying that about TikTok now, but it's just a matter.
Oh, yeah, no, I am on board with that. And by the way, swearing is great on this podcast.
Oh,
so
is it okay? Okay, good to know.
Yeah, but no, TikTok is like, I am not going to dance. I'm not going to jump around. What would they want me to do? Like sit still and hold up a book, like slowly?
But I guarantee you, by the end of the year, I'll be on damn TikTok doing
Yeah,
something.
probably.
So I kind of like the platforms, and I will look at them, and I'm on Instagram all the time, just looking at the dance videos for some reason. I'm just fascinated with those. And Facebook, all of them have a different kind of vibe to them,
They really do.
but I know I need to use them. You have to both have a personality there, and if you're an author and you're really connecting with people and readers and fans, you want to have a presence there that's viable and authentic and relational. So I work at it.
I think that's really wonderful, but I also think it is hard because it's one of the things that I talk to my authors most about. And I'll say, I can tweet or post or whatever 100 times, but as the editor, honestly, a reader doesn't want to interact with me. They want to interact with you, the writer, I can do it 100 times, but if you do it once, it's going to be that much more meaningful. But then I get the question, well, what is a meaningful interaction and how do I do that? And I just go, I don't know. That there's not like a magical formula. It's kind of like a level of building trust.
It is. And building I think people just want to know you're a human being too,
Oh, that's true.
Feel like they could have a relationship with you, even if it's superficial, even if it's that virtual kind of top of the line relationship. I admire like Amina Akhtar. Who,
she's great.
She's great at it. And then her dog, you've got that dog.
Beanie. No. Beanie and Tam are actually very good friends. I mean, Beanie is famous. So, Tam just really is part of the entourage.
So that all goes a long way, I think. It
really does. And I have to say that just, from a personal standpoint, it was one of the more difficult things for me. Okay. When I transferred from being, primarily doing freelance work to working as an in-house editor, because suddenly all of my opinions and my voice could potentially reflect back on whatever author I've acquired or worked on or am promoting.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it wasn't like I was spouting, insane opinions before, but it certainly has. And I'm also very fortunate that working with Polis Books, I'm free to share whatever opinion I want. But still there's a level of, do I want to say that? Could this reflect every time before I press send? Because it's not just me or my potential fans. It could, affect a lot of authors.
That's true. I have really considered getting another Twitter account so I can just fucking say any damn thing I want. There's sometimes I just want to go, go DEFCON 4 on the, and I stop myself, I really do.
Oh yeah. And the number of times I compose something and then I go, no, I shouldn't do that. It's going to be a problem. Well, and that's honestly one of the reasons I stopped using Facebook. I'm going to say last summer. I mean, I've been on it forever. I wouldn't say I was hugely active, but I probably used it as much as everything else. But, pandemic, elections, all of this. And suddenly it just became, since you can so freely express an opinion in, a lot of words, people were choosing to do that. And I got very overwhelmed and very upset quickly. And, I was like, and then do you respond? And it's probably not going to be worth it. But do I say something because I don't want to feel, complicit in this, all of this. And I finally went, you know what? I don't need to be on this site because that's what you just described is why I love Twitter, because we can say something and put it out there and we have to think about it. Because we've only got a few words to be pithy.
That's right. And maybe somebody will miss it anyway.
Exactly. It's not like we're going to have, we can have a little bit of a back and forth. But it's not going to be generally, especially for me, not being, the celebrity of any sort. I'm not going to get, a million responses to something if it wasn't,
right.
So I really liked
times last year. I'm sorry to jump over.
No, please. It's about you, not me.
No, a couple of times last year on Facebook, it got really uncomfortable around some of the conversations. And you just kind of don't know what to do, and for me, I just go like, think I'm not going to weigh in on this. That kind of, it's this whole cancel culture that social media can really promote is a bad thing. I think it's so easy on Twitter and Facebook and other places just to, call somebody an idiot or call somebody out of their name and then just move on. That's not a good thing, I don't think.
No, it's absolutely not. And I think it's just like, a lot of people were talking at the end of the year and beginning of this one about, we all had best of lists, right? That was a big thing that, and they're still coming out. Yeah. But there was a big outcry about people who were posting like worst of, like, here are the books that I
saw that on Twitter, but I never saw a list, but I saw reference to it.
Right. And I was going, I don't understand. I mean, I think there's enough negativity in the world without going to put more out there. Like if I kind of subscribe to the, if you're not going to say something nice, don't say something at all. Unless, of course, somebody is saying something, awful. And you're going to be like, no, please Nazi, go away. But like, don't go out there to just say, I didn't like this book, or, I didn't like this movie, or it's like that thing. Okay, I'm going to ask the question. Are you playing Wordle?
I am not. And I
think you're the only person in the world.
I saw everybody doing it and I thought, well, I had to talk myself out of it because I'm going like, damn, sure, I know you'd be good at that. I've got so much to do. I'm going like, that is not another one thing. You don't need another thing to be distracted.
Well, what about you? I've done it a couple of times. Okay. I admit. I love any sort of word game.
I do too. I adore them.
but I'm not particularly a competitive person. So like I don't
now. Oh God, I am so competitive.
So, I wouldn't post the score or anything, but also I don't care if somebody else does. And a couple of times people have said things where I go, oh, that's kind of a hint and appreciate it and whatever. Yeah. But have you seen all of these like negative posts about like, don't post your Wordle, we don't need to know how good you are?
Oh, I have seen a couple of those.
And I just don't like, I am so sorry for whoever really has such an issue. Right. A little tiny game that gives a few people some pleasure.
Like, a little bit of joy. That's right. And a little bit of self-confidence.
Yeah, I mean, if we felt that way about, vaccines or like really find a position that actually is a position and go for that. But Wordle is not a hill I would ever die on.
So true. It reminds me of how I have changed my opinion about self-promotion. Okay. So as an author, you have to do some of it. And I publish with a small indie press, and I don't have a publicist. I am my publicist. And they don't have the money to do that kind of stuff. So I know I have to be there, and I know some of my posts need to be self-promotional. And when I first started doing it, like 3, 4, or 5 years ago, I thought, oh, I feel so bad blowing my own horn. And now, I still pause sometimes, and I do it with some moderation. But boy, I don't feel guilty about self-promotion at all anymore.
Well, you shouldn't. And you know what I heard? And of course, you come by this honestly. If you were doing the breaks, on the pledge drives, because the analogy that I always use, because the person who, I think of Twitter like a cocktail party. Because everybody that, every celebrity, every publisher, every agent, every author, or most of them that you'd ever want to meet is all there. They're all at this party, and it's up to you how you act at this cocktail party. And you could stand in the middle of the room and yell, buy my book, which is not going to work in a cocktail party or on Twitter. You can kind of overhear some conversations and not join in and stay in the corner, and that's okay. Yeah. Or, you could gently insert yourself into something and say something pithy and see if you're engaged with, you know, basic cocktail party behavior. But my opinion on how to sell your stuff is basically consider yourself like I use NPR, but you could use PBS, you could use anything. Most of the time you're going to be talking about other content.
Yes.
But a few times a year, you're going to hold a pledge drive.
Oh, good.
And so you kind of
Wow.
want that. Hey, if you like my content the rest of the year, a couple of
Right?
times we're going to go stop and talk about what I do.
Oh
And we'd
my goodness,
love
what a
your
great
input.
analogy. What a great analogy. Oh my goodness, thank you.
Well, I mean, it's perfect for you. You come from this background.
Well, then how come I didn't think of it?
Well, that's editor.
That's really
You
a
said
great
it all. I just put it in
analogy.
different way.
Yes, that's going to help me a lot now to think about it that way. Because when I was doing the pledge drives, this was before they were scripted, because now they're
Uh-huh.
totally scripted, And so I was really speaking from the heart. I wouldn't say good things about the show unless I believed in it. So I'd be doing the breaks around Sesame Street and stuff I really thought made a difference in people's lives. But yeah, I like that idea. I'm writing that down. Thank you, Danielle.
No worries.
In fact, I'm going to start saying this self-promotion is brought to you by.
I'll give you a tote bag.
That's right. That's right. You get free tote bag.
And you and I both have a ton of tote bags from all the
Oh my
conferences.
God. I have so many tote bags. In fact, one time I thought about at a conference, we should like have a room where people can bring tote bags for swaps.
Right?
I have some great PBS tote bags that people would love.
Oh, I know. And I always, but I don't know. I've always watched PBS and always listened to NPR. And as they have the best content. I mean, PBS
they really
is
do
just
have great
insane.
content, I must admit.
But it's always I've watched them as I get older increase the price of the tote bag, because one of my I don't know, life goals was I'd have enough disposable income at some point to get the tote bag. And they keep moving my cheese.
Now, here's a secret that, NPR and PBS probably don't want you to know. But if you don't get the tote bag, that means your total contribution is tax deductible. But if you do get the tote bag, you're supposed to back out the cost of that.
Oh, well, I find that a lot. And actually so did Amina Akhtar. She was the one who suggested I do it. But we just both adopted wolves. Just non sequitur there. Yeah. But there's actually, it's local to New York, and it's a wonderful organization that, helps wild wolves.
Yeah.
And we each adopted one. And I was looking because I've worked with various charitable organizations in the past, but you don't see this option very frequently. It was like, if you want, to get all the stuff that they send you, but realize it's going to cost us this much.
Right.
And if you would rather the entire donation go to the wolf, we'll send it to you virtually. You get the picture virtually as opposed to and I really appreciated that they did that. And I think more organizations ought to, because I know we like getting stuff.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that we think about that's a cost outside of the charity.
Administrative cost. That's right. Yeah. Good for you. I like that you support wolves. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's random. I mean, I try to support a lot of things, but it's just...
Yeah,
it was a late night conversation. We were both like, we need wolves. Things happen.
We need wolves in the world.
Like, I've got a wolf now.
I love it. I love it. So are you reading a lot of good books now?
Oh, goodness. I mean, well, yes. I have an embarrassment of riches, I think, because I read at this point, honestly, very little for quote unquote pleasure, but I say that in the quotes because everything that I get through my submissions is actually a pleasure. Okay. So, I'm really lucky in that I get to be paid for, reading things. Unfortunately, with all of if I get the bingo for saying supply chain issues enough today. But with all of that, we've had to rush so many things into production early that I am so behind on reading submissions because basically number one priority are books that I've already acquired. So I need to make sure they're going to get in production, and be on deadline, and everything's great about them. So submissions, which would normally be like, oh, I've got a little bit of I wouldn't say free time, but I've got a little wiggle room between working on, this month's book and next month's book. I'll check that. That's gone completely by the wayside. at the moment, but you know.
Yeah, I get it. I admire your job, but juggling those, juggling the need to read with all the other work.
It really
It's
is.
hard.
And prioritizing like which thing, you know, and also then of course, like you were talking about with the smaller presses that you've worked with, you know, a lot of the event planning and stuff falls to us. So,
That's
you know,
right.
doing
You
that
gotta
as
wear
well and
several
making
hats.
sure, you know, and I honestly, I'll admit to you, I feel guilty a lot of nights because I'm like, well, maybe, you know, I should have done a different order of priority, or maybe, you know.
No.
Well, I
Anyone who
mean,
knows you know you're given 150%. So,
well, but it's so, I mean, you as a writer, you know, like this is your goal, this is your dream, and you're putting it into somebody else's hands.
yeah,
And you really have to hope that that person is prioritizing you.
that's right. Well, I'll tell you what I have learned, because I'm an older writer, and because I like knowing the back end of the business. So I'm interested in how the business works in general. That I've really have a lot of patience for the waiting that takes place in this work, and because I've had to wear a lot of hats myself as an indie writer, I get how much work it is to do all this other stuff beyond the writing, and it kind of intrigues me. Maybe I should be writing more and being intrigued by that less.
Well, I mean, as somebody who has read your upcoming book, yes, you should be writing more. Don't be intrigued. I want to read more.
So like, how does that work? I'm always interested in that part of it. So,
well, you know, honestly, it's one of the things that I love working for Polis Books is that, you know, we compete very well with a major publisher, but at the same time, we do have our fingers in a lot more areas than an editor normally ought to or does,
Right.
And I love that part about it because I get to learn every aspect of the business and figure out, you know, because so many things inform the other.
That's right.
And you just never know, you know, what can make, you know, something more marketable or, you know, anything like that. And it's fascinating to me.
And does it feel to you like the trends are moving faster than they used to, or that things are not quite as codified?
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things, brilliant question. I mean, maybe you should be hosting this podcast. I'm just saying.
Like I said, I'm interested in the business.
But no, I absolutely see and sense what you're asking. Because one of the things that I've noticed, and I will credit the pandemic for this.
Okay.
Like, for example, and I'm going to use an analogy, but then I'm going to get back to, I promise, what you just asked. Like in the past, planning events and talking to bookstores and that sort of thing, they would only have an event, you know, within, let's say, a week, and I could be exaggerating slightly, but not by much, of the release date. You know, if it's not timely, they don't want it. They're going from new release to new release to new release.
Got it.
And during the pandemic, I was actually heartened to see that kind of went a little bit out the window. You know, virtual events meant it could be somebody all over the world, which normally it had to be somebody locally or they could travel there. And they also didn't necessarily care when it had come out. Wow. You know, if they hadn't had that event there. And I thought, wow, this is actually a really great thing because there's so much, I feel, unnecessary pressure put on that like release week. And honestly, a really good book. I mean, it's great if it sells out in a week or 2 weeks or the first month or whatever it is, but a really, really good book and a really good author, as I'm sure you can attest to, it's that tail. It's that people keep going to it.
Yes,
exactly.
It
right. And I'm like, it's nice that the bookstores and event places are finally catching up to that. And so kind of similarly, I feel like, and of course, one of my soapboxes, so you'll have to stop me, is I have issues with genre. I understand as far as marketing goes that they are important, but I can also pick a book, any book. I could pick your book and give you a good argument why it would fit into at least 4 genres.
Wow. Yeah.
And so also, you know, films, if you like movies, you might watch a different genre of movie every day. You might, today I'm in the mood for a comedy. Tonight I want to be scared. You know, and you'll watch something different every day. Whereas readers tend to read in their lane.
Interesting.
And it's good for
And that's
certain
not
marketing.
changing.
Well, I think it kind of is, because I'm watching genres blending, which I have been an advocate of, to a lot of people's detriment since I started working at Agora. But I love things where it's not a clear genre, and I can get, I feel like, as opposed to it being a setback, oh, well, your readership is unclear. To me, I just see now I've got, it's a Venn diagram. I've got two circles and there's this overlap in the middle, and I can get double the readership if
good for you.
I can plot. So I feel like that's definitely something. And I'm seeing it even in, for example, like calls from Publishers Weekly, when they say, hey, we're looking for this, and they're describing blended genres. And so I'm kind of excited for that. And I think that that's a little bit what you were saying, where it's this fast evolution of things.
It really, and it's shifting so quickly. And I think the pandemic has something to do with it. I think people during the pandemic tried things they hadn't tried before because they were, bored out of their minds. I've read all my mysteries. Well, let me pick up this graphic novel.
Exactly.
And same thing with television and film. People were going deep in the list to look at things that had been around a while and rediscovering them, and I think that's a good thing, because I do think there's a lot of topics that deserve kind of an intersectional look. It doesn't have to be, there's social justice issues, for instance, that can have a treatment around a romance or treatment around a nonfiction book or treatment around drama or a screenplay, or I think that's a great thing. I love that this creative stuff is kind of merging. Now,
well, what a wonderful,
good at it.
Oh, what a wonderful segue,
I wish
Cheryl.
I could write magic realism or fantasy. Man, I wish I could do that.
Well, but I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, so your debut novel, which was Long Way Home, which was centered around World War II.
Yeah.
But you've got historical fiction. I believe that also had a murder in it or mystery to it. And you had a romance in that.
Okay, well, there you go.
and of course, we've got the Charlie Mack Mystery series, which is amazing.
Thank you.
But Time's Undoing, which is upcoming from Dutton in 2023, which I've had the pleasure of reading at least one iteration of. And that is so many genres right there, which was, of course, part of what I loved about it. But you used, there was a level of nonfiction to it. You just talked about social justice. That's an issue to it. There's a mystery to it. There's a romance to it. I would honestly have a hard time pinning down the specific genre of that book. I would change it for, whoever I was talking to and what kind of thing they wanted to read.
Yeah. I think it's being structured sort of like crime fiction, or, sold as crime fiction, but you're right. It has those elements in it. And it felt pretty organic and natural to me, at least when I was writing it, for those to be there.
No, it absolutely is. But I'm just saying, you can't say that, you don't really blend genres, when I think your track record shows that you've got a lot of things going on. And it's hard pressed to find a mystery that doesn't have a level of romance in it.
That's right. Yeah.
But often, it's kind of on the back burner. Yours would be like 60% mystery, 50, like it's a much closer percentage, I think.
Well, it's so funny you say that, because when I started, I wrote the first Charlie Mack mystery as kind of a standalone, just as a catharsis for having written that historical novel. I was just so worn out. I was like, I have to never look in the Library of Congress again. It'll be too soon, that kind of thing. So I just whipped out this Charlie Mack just to have fun, because I love mysteries and, problem solving and all that. And then this publisher who works in the world of lesbian fiction, Lesfic, came to me and said, do you think Charlie could be a lesbian? And I thought, well, yeah, I guess you could. And then my beta readers all thought she was already. So I went back to them. They were like, oh, we thought she was. I said, okay. Because I had not a whit of romance in that book at the beginning. Not a whit. Because I'm one of those purists around noir. And it's like, you don't have any romance in a mystery. I mean, you can hint at it. But this is about,
I think it is like admire their gams from afar.
That's right. Admire gams from afar. Exactly. Sam Spade. Exactly. So I was really hard pressed to figure out how to change it. And, the publisher was no help when I asked what percentage of romance should be in here. She's going like, I don't know. So I definitely learning as I go. And with each passing book, there's a little bit less kind of really specific, explicit romance, yeah, that's just me.
But I mean, Time's Undoing, God, I don't want to give anything away, so I have to be really careful.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that one is more romantic. I will say
it is, but I mean, it's done romantic. So well. It's done so naturally. And let me phrase it this way: you end it on a note that, to me, is unlike most of the series romances, and in a good way. Or mysteries that have a romance in them. To me, it was different and honest, and not necessarily just serving of the plot. It seemed very realistic.
Oh, that I appreciate what you say about that.
Is that too much, do you think?
Okay. I appreciate that. I feel good about that. Thank you.
Well, no, I just really liked it because I'm used to what people do at the end, like as a cliche.
Yes.
And it was going to go one way or another. And what you did was kind of true to life. And I was
striving for it not to be a cliche.
Yeah, no, you achieved that very, very well.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I've got my high expectations for that book. I mean, it was really the labor of love, like the first book, the historical fiction book was. I wanted to write about World War II because my father had been there. And
well, I was going to ask what drove you, because of course I know, Time's Undoing is actually based on your family story. Exactly. So when, Charlie Mack, I figured was a little bit more fun, but what brought you to Long Way Home?
Well, I was working in public broadcasting, and Ken Burns had just produced the series called The War about World War II, a multi-part series, and it was really good, and it was in the Ken Burns style, but the stories about African-American soldiers did not ring true for me based on my father's stories. So I thought, well, let me do a little research, because this doesn't feel right, because most Black soldiers were not on the front line in World War II. Most of them, like 80% of them, had to stay stateside to do all these menial tasks in support of the war. Okay. So even though you hear about the Tuskegee Airmen, of course, and the Italian, that Italian group that Spike Lee put in his movie, and others, and there was lots of heroism on the part of African-American soldiers. The real heroism, I thought, and my conceit in writing this book, was that they served as second-class soldiers honorably and with the best of their abilities, without being treated as first-class soldiers, and without having the glory of being on the front lines. And so that's what the book is about. It is about the ones who didn't get to go to the front line, but who served honorably every day, doing the work that they were told to do, in a really segregated and kind of miserable environment.
Well, that's really interesting. And I'm totally going to read the book now, because like you say, it's very different from the story that I see portrayed, in films or otherwise. Yeah.
But it is a story that has a lot of, I think, action and a lot of certainly emotional revelation. And there's a big romance in there. It's kind of a coming of age story. And I love doing the book, but it was hard.
I'm sure. Well, I mean, I can't imagine on both this. I mean, no book is easy. We'll go with that to begin with. Right. But, between that and Time's Undoing, where you're dealing with these issues with your family, I think that it would have to be triply difficult from anything else. I know that as an editor, I've worked with a few people who have either tried to tell their own stories or tell the story of somebody close to them. And I can tell that some writers, I'll say, suddenly this feels very distanced. I feel very separate from the story. And they'll say, well, that's the part that's true, because they don't want to go too deep with their own experiences, and because they're concerned that when it's true, it's just going to seem over the top on the page. So they pull back.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you've done 2 books like this, and times undoing, I can guarantee, that is not the case. The reader is in there and feels everything. There's none of that pulling back. Did you find that was, kind of going back to our earlier introvert extrovert conversation?
Yeah.
Did you find that at all psychologically, difficult or heavy to do?
Yeah. The psychologically difficult part was that there's so much of the story I don't know. And so I took some chances to put myself in my grandfather's shoes and into and to his cohort shoes to kind of imagine what would have been the response they would have. And so I'm not a great writer to do emotional scenes. I'm just not that good at it. I know some people who are really lovely at it, but for this book, I really immersed myself, and then I kind of let them take me over so I could do justice to the story. I felt that obligation for both the books to do kind of justice to these little told stories about African American life and contribution to America. And, I give myself up to them. And so that maybe makes it a better book.
I think it does. And I think, I hate to contradict a guest, but I think you're wrong. I think you do the emotion thing very well. And I think that the fact that you're willing to be honest and give yourself over to them is actually a lot more realistic than had you tried to, make it emotional. That would not have rang true. So I think that's wonderful.
Right. One thing I've been thinking about with the Times Undoing is, and I'm grappling with this in all my writing, to tell you the truth, Chantel. I'm back and forth on this. How do I feel about the white gaze thing?
Oh, okay.
I know.
Let's discuss. No, I know.
Sometimes
I'm excited.
Yeah. So with Charlie, I sort of, who's a Black lesbian, in contemporary setting, I sort of feel an obligation to write to audiences who don't know that community, who are not part of that culture, to give them some information about what that kind of life is like, so they have another way to look at it,
Makes sense.
Especially around being tolerant and understanding the culture more. So I'm kind of, in the back of my mind, have this white woman in Iowa who's
does she have a name? And
I haven't yet given her a name. I should give her a name since she's so important to that process. But for the books I'm writing now, I'm like, I don't care what white people think about it.
Nor should you.
I have to write this, and they need to get it. And if they get it, they're gonna love it. And if they don't get it, they're going to still learn something. And it's, I just don't care anymore.
No, you shouldn't. And I think that's wonderful. And I hope you tell some great stories now that you've, thrown off this mantle of this poor woman from Iowa who really, really wants
her
to
off the hook. I do know her husband's name, though, because I always think she reads something and so she goes like, Walter, did you know so-and-so and so? That kind of thing. But I never gave her a name.
I love that. It's Walter. You totally need to dedicate one of the books to Walter.
Walter's my beta reader. He didn't even know it.
Oh, no, but I think, first of all, I can't imagine how hard that has to be, because you've got to figure out, as a writer, are you going to coddle that quote unquote mainstream white voice, or do you want to be authentic? It's one of the reasons that we started Agora is because with crime fiction specifically is because crime fiction was always an area that talked about right and wrong, justice, whether it's moral, whether it's legal, whether it's and so telling stories that are underrepresented, and having these authentic voices in crime fiction, the fact that some of them were missing seemed unnatural to the genre for me, because that was where you'd go to learn something or see a way of life that you weren't exposed to.
That's right. That's such an honorable and high calling that you guys have. I really appreciate it.
But that's why, crime fiction is a genre, and I think that you're doing it you're doing it perfectly, and throwing off that mantle of that poor. I'm going to laugh about that one from Iowa forever. Oh, that's really good. And Walter. Oh, I've got to. I will remember Walter as well. R.I.P. Walter. Remembered you fondly.
Yeah, I'm loving the group of new writers that we have from all walks of life who are writing crime fiction. I mean, and especially, and we all come from this. We come from a love of the genre in its classic traditional sense, and at the same time, we understand it could be more. It could be much more of a purveyor of what our future is if we bring all these new voices to it, who see justice and see these issues and see family and see systems in a different way, all the things that play out in crime fiction. And so I just love that we have crime writers of color and queer crime writers and all these. Oh God,
yes. I mean, first of all, it's boring otherwise. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it really, really is. And showing all of these other things, but also, I think as a writer, you have one of the most noble professions, honestly, because if you think about it and you go back to, what you read as a kid and what influenced you, and, a book, whether it's supposed to be, a literary tome or, a lighthearted YA, it can change your perception and it can change your mind and it can change your life.
That's absolutely right. And it can make you think bigger than yourselves.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
give you aspirations that you wouldn't have ever had. Yeah, that's what I like about writing. And it's what I enjoyed most when I was a young person, reading mysteries. I didn't read mysteries exclusively, but the ones I read were always ones like, wow, I bet I could do that. Or wow, didn't know about that place. Or
right.
Who knew boys could do that, but girls couldn't?
Yeah.
One of the things I
bet I can do that.
Yeah, I bet I can do that. bet I could be the Hardy Boys.
Yeah, clearly. No, that's what it's a great genre. And yeah, no, I love that you've thrown off this mantle now and are just gonna go forward. And I have to ask, you've dealt with historical, well, actually more than once. I mean, Times Undoing has a historical element to it.
Yes.
You've dealt with mystery, you've dealt with romance, you've dealt clearly with nonfiction.
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to go for like magical realism next? What's the next?
Actually, yes.
Yay!
Well, actually, I'm trying something. I am a huge. This is such a crazy thing, and I feel guilty. It's one of my guilty pleasures.
No guilty pleasures.
Okay, I'm a huge fan of Westerns.
Oh, I love Westerns. Oh my God.
Television Westerns. I'm a huge fan. And so I've told a few people in our community about that, and I've been challenged to write a Western. And I've put off doing it because I really don't want to mess it up. And then I thought, well, how am I going to write a Western with all this negative, stuff about slaves and Native Americans, and white people running amok doing crazy shit that I wouldn't do. And, how am I really going to write a Western, even though I admire it from afar?
Of course.
So I've decided I'm writing a Western where the protagonist is this African-American woman in Oklahoma who is a best-selling Western writer, but nobody knows she's African-American. And she has a relationship with a Native American friend who, through his grandfather, she gets to go back in time to correct some wrongs in the West after she goes to the smoke lodge.
Oh my God, I love this.
But I'm having so much fun with it.
No, it sounds wonderful. I would buy this. I would read this. I hope that maybe you'd send me a draft at some point. Oh my God.
I'm not even a third of the way through, but I find it, I can't figure out yet all the devices of it, but sure. I'm so intrigued with her saying, well, no, wait a minute, I'm going to go back and help these people. These white settlers shouldn't just be moving in on this group of slaves, ex-slaves. How, no, I'm going to go back and help.
I love so much about this. I mean, the fact that, first of all, you're using it again, with all of your books is wonderful, for a there's a message of social justice to it, but also you're using these wonderful kind of fun genres to do that. And Western, I think a Western is underrated. I always have.
I love Western.
And going back to that for a moment, that genre thing, I always use the argument that Jaws is a Western.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it.
Basically Jaws is the guy, who rides in from out of town and changes the perceptions of everybody that's there.
That's right. And goes out and gets the bad guy. Yes.
And so, Western has at its core this, and yes, you're right. There is so much that's embroiled with issues with indigenous cultures and slavery and all of this. But if you really break it down, it's the, one person making a change in a community.
Yes, it can be that.
It can be. Frequently, it is not.
Yeah, well, and it's certainly the journey of the hero, I think.
Yes.
The hero who butts up against the system. Whether it's Gary Cooper in High Noon saying, I'm going to bring this guy who's coming to town. I'm not leaving town till Frank Miller's dead. Or if it's John Wayne in The Searchers, whose misguided view of Native Americans is changed when he recovers his niece from a band of Indians. And he's changed by the pioneer spirit, or whether it's Shane who wants to give up his life as a gunfighter, but finds that he really can't let go of that. And so he saves this group of pioneers and this woman and her husband that he has grown to love. And I mean, I just love the archetypes.
It's actually really funny because the more you talk about it, and especially you talking about it, you can see that Western, which you kind of think of as a emotionless genre, people go in, shoot places, but the way you've described every single one of these has been an emotional journey for that character. Like it is a big choice that somebody is making to, stand up for something or find something or be themselves.
That's exactly right.
And I think that's kind of underrated in the Western genre. So are those your favorites? Because I can talk about Westerns all night.
Okay, because I want you to tell me some of your favorites. Those are a few of my favorites. Yes.
Well, I love Red River. I mean, it's super campy.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Any version of 3:10 to Yuma. I think.
Did you like the first one better than the second, or the other way around?
I would have never cast Russell Crowe in that, but
I would have never cast Glenn Ford either.
But I think Ben Wade, just on the whole, is one of the best. Talk about the emotions that go into that, and even and especially honestly in the remake, where he goes on the train just so the boy can tell them that the dad put him on the train. I mean, there's levels to that.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I know. It's just and I come by these mostly through my dad. I mean, these are the movies he and I would watch because my mom hated all of these.
Oh, did she?
Mostly, believe it or not, because they were too sad. Like it was always something like 3:10 to Yuma was too sad. So it's funny for a Western. Also, have you ever watched, and this is going a little bit off book, they're Australian. Let's see, The Man from Snowy River and Return to Snowy River. It's about a man who lives in the outback and tames horses. And then these new people come in with a lot of money and think they can buy up a lot of land and take over the horses. And, it's beautiful as far as scenery and the rest of it goes.
Yes. I think I've seen the first one, but I don't remember it, but I know of them. Yeah. I will look at them actually now.
I mean, there's a bunch of them. Oh, and what's the one that's so beautiful with, all I can ever remember is the cinematography. It's Robert Duvall and Kevin Costner, and I can't believe I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, that one, which one is that one? So that's not Lonesome Dove because Robert Duvall is in that one.
Let's see.
But the one with Kevin Costner and
Open Range.
Open Range is good. Yeah. And then I think that's Larry McMurtry.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. And then Lonesome Dove is a series, is a brilliant series, I think, for a contemporary Western. There's a new Western out. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard really good things about it. Asian American family in the West. I think the parents die and the children are trying to find their way in the plains of, I don't know where it is, Kansas, Oklahoma, or something like that.
I haven't heard about this one.
I hear it's gorgeous. I'll send you.
If you find it, let me know. And of course, I assume you've seen The Harder They Fall.
Oh yeah, I love The Harder They Fall. I love that.
That was magnificent, from the music to everything about it. I have insisted everybody watch this.
I think it's a little bloody at the beginning, and I don't think you need quite that much blood spurting around, but that's my only criticism of that one. Otherwise, I just adore it.
Yeah, no. Western, and I actually really feel bad because I think it was Berkeley too, about 5-6 years ago, I could be off by a little bit, they had a Western line.
Oh, did
and they just basically, they said nobody's buying these.
Wow.
And stopped. And it was right before, I don't know if you're familiar with Craig Johnson's Longmire.
Longmire, yes.
Yes. So it was right before that really became a hit on TV. And so their timing was just particularly bad. I just feel like, there is I really want you to like hang up right now and write this, because there's such a market for this that I feel is untapped. And I think that marketing it just to like, you say Western, you think what, like 60-year-old white guy is going to read that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think that's true. So, so I'm really excited for this. And I know we got way off topic, but you said Western, I got excited.
Yeah, no, I'm always excited to talk to anybody about Westerns and another woman. Yay.
You're right. I don't know that I know a lot of other women who like Westerns.
They're around. When you bring it up, they'll go like, yeah.
Okay, well, I got to bring it up more often.
Used to watch. Everybody will say, I used to watch with my dad.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time, and we've gone over. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, it's a great conversation.
I could go another hour. I swear, this was wonderful.
We talk enough about writing and stuff. I think.
I don't know. If you know what, if they don't like it.
There you go.
But I would absolutely love to have you back on.
Oh, that's very sweet. This flew by.
And I have no idea. I don't think we talked enough about your books.
We talked plenty about my books. Yes, we did.
But I'd like to, I'd like to explore more in the future if you would like to,
I would love
come back.
It was such a fun conversation and easy to do, and I feel so relaxed and happy.
Okay, good. That's my goal. This was fun, truly. Great end to my day. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
This has been Words of Prey, and it is a Pipeline Artists original. And Pipeline Artists focuses on education, empowerment, and elevating authentic voices in film, publishing, and beyond. And you can contact us and the other future podcasts at podcasts, plural, at pipelineartist.com. And you can find us and a bunch of other amazing podcasts at pipelineartist.com/listen. And if you have any suggestions for guests or anything else, or any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we will see you next time.